Assalamu alaikum, my darling, and welcome back to Manifesting Muslima. I'm your host, Zara Pedersen, and today we're going to talk about a less than happy subject, one of those tough lessons to learn when we're trying to use the law of attraction in accordance to the Islamic principles to create a better life for ourselves within the limits that Allah has created for us. And one of the things that I get quite a lot of questions about is, well, I've been making a dua for a long time. I've been doing the work for a long time and, getting up in the middle of the night to pray tahajjud. I've prayed istikhara. I've done everything that I can. And yet it feels like Allah is withholding the blessing, the manifestation. And I don't understand, what is going on? Why have I not received it yet? So there's a couple of things here, because the thing is, we'll speak on the first one is why he might be withholding. And please keep in mind that I am in no way, shape or form worthy of speaking on Allah's behalf. No one is other than the prophets. But I'm not speaking on Allah's behalf. This is just the kind of stuff that, to me, from having studied the Quran and law of attraction, what I'm sort of deducting from it. And that is that it's just not quite the right timing yet. And this is such a hard, difficult lesson to learn for us, because we're no, I'm doing the work. I'm showing Allah that I'm ready. I've been asking for him for him to give me this thing, and yet it's not coming. And we quite often in our own lives and in our flawed understanding of the world, ourselves, everything around us, think that we know when the right time for us to get something is, how it's supposed to come into our lives. And quite often, especially our timing, is very much set by societal norms and standards and traditions. So let's say, for instance, a very common one is that a lot of women are well, I've been making dua for a long time. I'm almost 30 now and I still haven't gotten married. I still haven't found the person. I'm almost 35 and I still haven't gotten married. I still haven't found the person. I'm almost 40. I'm almost 45, and so on and so forth. But that timing, that stress that we have set upon marriage is very much based upon societal standards and norms. It's also based on tradition, where you're from, things like that, that tells us that the quicker we get married and start a family, the better, which isn't necessarily the case. Allah doesn't say you have to be married by 30 anywhere in Islam. It doesn't say that you have to be married by 40, 45, 50. It doesn't say anything like that. It says marry and marry well, find the person that completes your deen. It's not about, getting married before a certain age or anything. It's supposed to be a marriage that sort of completes you in the servitude to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And of course, for some people, it's about also starting a family and bringing new souls into this dunya as Allah has willed it. But the thing is that we will then place these standards and this time deadline framework upon the things that we want. And when we feel like Allah is not respecting that standard or timeline, we feel like we've been slighted. We feel like Allah is ignoring us. We feel like everything is unfair. Everybody else around us is getting the things, and we're the ones who are the odd man out. And in reality, everything is happening exactly the way it's supposed to be happening for you. We cannot force things to happen if Allah doesn't will it to happen yet. And while we can certainly push for things, you can go out right now, I'm sure you can. A lot of us can go out right now and get the things that we actually want, including marriage. But we have standards, we want to get it done well. We want to do it the first time around, right? So we don't want to do that. We don't want to force things to happen, because then it might not be that blessed anymore. Just like, money, it's easy to make money, but you don't want to do everything for money or anything for money, right? You want to make sure that you make money in a way that it pleases you and is halal and so on. So, it's not that you can't go out there and make things happen. Allah is also, and this is, I can't remember the sheikh I watched who said this, which I thought was really interesting. Allah said, even the bad du'as that you make, the things that aren't right for you, you can go out there and you can make the du'a and Allah will facilitate, even the bad things Allah will facilitate, because that's, you have free will, and hopefully you will learn that, hey, this is not the right thing, and I will learn from it and move on from it. But that's kind of the lesson in this dunya. You can kind of go out and force things to happen and Allah will facilitate it, because you're making a decision, you're using your free will to make a decision, and as such, Allah is like, okay, this is the choice and the direction you've chosen in this life. Okay, go ahead for it, but see how great that turns out for you in the end. Right? So it can definitely happen. You can definitely force things to be, but that's not necessarily the right outcome. You want to make sure that you're doing it with the right outcome, with Allah's blessing, with His will, rather than Allah facilitating because you're blinding yourself and rushing yourself by being impatient. When Allah says not yet, because Allah doesn't say no to our du'as. Allah says yes or not yet. That's kind of like what Allah says to our du'as. The du'as is the gateway to us to miracles through Allah. And so He doesn't say no to us when we're asking for something. There are certain things that Allah is like, I'll wait with this until the hereafter, and you'll get it in the hereafter. It's not quite right for you right now. However, again, if you're making the dua and you're like, I want it right now, Allah will facilitate. But He might also again say not yet, and then you'll have to wait for it until the right opportunity comes along. But there's no point in us getting too caught up with it and too stressed about it. And there's specifically not any, especially no reason for us to get our knickers in a twist and feel like Allah is ignoring us, because He's not. He's actually looking after us and trying to protect us from ourselves or from other people that may still be in our lives, that may take advantage of a situation, or maybe you need to learn a few more lessons in order to be able to hold on to the blessing better. And we don't know these things because we don't have the knowledge of everything that goes on around us. I mean, let's be real. We don't even have knowledge of what's going on inside of our bodies. Most of us, things are happening inside of our bodies and we don't even know until it's too late and we go to the doctor because something's hurting, and we don't know these things because we don't have that kind of knowledge even about ourselves. So let alone the whole world around us and whether or not the timing is right for something. We have to trust Allah's timing. This is where tawakkul really comes into play majorly when we're using the law of attraction from an Islamic perspective. So another thing that can happen is that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala basically introduces the blessing and then removes it again. You've probably sort of felt that, some of you might have felt that a few times, where it's like, oh, it's here now, and then no. And then it's like, oh my God, it's coming now. And no. What is all of that about? And again, remember, I just feel like I need to put these disclaimers in here because astaghfirullah, I'm not trying to speak on Allah's behalf. But when Allah shows us the blessing and He kind of brings it close to us, my personal understanding of that is that Allah is showing us that it is within reach, that He wants us to have it. Don't lose hope. It's right here. Don't lose hope. It's right there. Look, it's available to you. But what I just need from you, one more last thing or a couple more things. But don't give up hope on this desire. It is right here, my darling. But I need you to figure something else out. And I personally feel like while it can feel difficult for us because we're human and we have human emotions and we're little crybabies. Well, I mean, rightly so, because when we feel like we're about to get our blessing and then it's taken away from us last minute, it can feel very hurtful and almost like, oh, here we go again. I need to have more sabr. I need to persevere, yet a little bit more, or whatever it is, right? But the point is that I feel like a change in perspective can help us so much. It is Allah telling us, don't lose hope. It is so close to you. You're so close to having it, but I need one more little thing from you. And that little thing could be anything. It's so hard for me to say. Of course, I can't tell you what that little thing is. Often it might be a thing of timing, or that we're starting to lose hope. It could also just be that we're starting to lose hope. Maybe it's a question of you know what to do, but you're not doing it. So I'm going to show you how close you are to it. And you probably know what else you have to do, but you haven't done it yet. And so Allah is like, come on, teasing you almost with it. Like, come on, it's right there. Now like almost like trying to motivate you by here it is, because it gives you that sense of like, oh, I am really close. So I feel like that change in perspective when those things happen helps keep the morale really high for us. It helps keep us motivated, and it makes us go a little bit further again. It makes us push a little bit harder that next time, and then it'll come. But I don't feel like it is Allah teasing us in a mean way. I don't think it is Allah being cruel or evil or punishing us or anything like that, because Allah doesn't do that to us in this dunya. He's trying to teach us lessons, those he loves, of course. Remember this. I'm not talking about the kafirs and all of these things. We're not talking about them. We're talking about God-fearing, God-loving women of Islam who are doing our best to live the best life in his servitude in this dunya and in the hereafter, inshallah. He loves us. He's not trying to punish us on purpose in this dunya. He's not trying to punish us just because he's bored. We're not, the Real Housewives, daily show that he can watch because he's bored. Like, it's none of that. He is literally trying to do what's best for us. And so when we're changing that perspective, we're remembering that it's coming from a place of compassion and love and grace from him to show us it is within our ability to get. It is within reach for us to get. And he wants to have us push a little bit more to get it, or continue holding on to that hope and making that dua for it, and continuously turn to Allah for it, of course, as well. It might also be a slight redirection from Allah to say, you're close, but you kind of took a wrong turn here, and I need you just to redirect, and then it'll come to you. But anyway, looking, and again, all of these things is so specific to the situation that you're in, because quite often what we tend to do, being very what's the word I'm looking for? Limited in our knowledge, as I said before, around what's going on around us and ourselves, we can tend to get quite focused on one thing and kind of staring so much at a tree in the forest that we don't see any of the other trees, kind of thing. How's that saying go? I've got my thing right here because how does it go? Oh my God, there's like a saying. I know. Let me have this moment, please. Can't see the trees. Can't see the forest through the trees. I knew there was something, I just needed to get that out because I'm so tired of always forgetting the thing that I want to say to you guys. And then it always ends up with me saying, I don't know, I'll figure it out. Maybe I'll come. I don't know. So now you know that's the saying. So sometimes we as peoples, when we're so focused on something, we will stare so much at it or look in one direction that we're almost blinding ourselves to what we're actually looking at and the sheer amount of possibilities that is around us. And so that's what we have to remember, that when we're doing something, it's very easy for us to get caught up in one direction or in one method or in one specific outcome or method of it to come to fruition for us, that we're forgetting that maybe Allah is trying to open doors on this, like in other directions, but we're so blinded to it that when he does the thing of like almost giving it to us and then removing it, it is so that we can like snap out of it sometimes and take a look around us and see the other ways to that same blessing that may have more benefit for us than the one that we thought was the right way. And I think that is so important for us to remember, because anything else can get kind of sour and it makes Allah feel like a bully to us or feel unfair. And there is nothing unfair about Allah or bully about Allah or mean about Allah. Allah is actually love and peace and joy, happiness, everything. He can, of course, punish us, but he only punishes those who do wrong. Deliberately wrong, right? And don't ask forgiveness even. So Allah is not trying to do these things. Allah is the most just. So if Allah is doing that to you, or if he's making you wait a bit longer for your manifestation, have tawakkul, have patience, be grateful that Allah loves you so much that he's not willing to compromise on that happiness and the blessing for you, that he will just send it to you now, even though you might not be ready for it. He says, I know when the right timing is for you, and I know where you need to be mentally, physically, spiritually, in order for you to align perfectly with my blessing. And so I will wait. That's how much I love you. I will withhold the blessing until I see that you're there, and then I will give it to you. And subhanAllah, that thought to me makes me feel so comforted. It makes me feel so loved and worthy. And it makes me feel more patient, even though I have tons of manifestations that I'm like working on still and that I've been working on for years. And while, sometimes my human ego, my human self can get tired and I'm like, oh gosh, here we go again. I'm just so tired of this. When is it my turn? I constantly remind myself that Allah is not doing it to punish me. He's doing it because He sees so much more in me, so much more potential in me and strength than I can even see in myself. And listen, I love myself, even on bad days, I'm like, you know what? I'm pretty good. Like, I'm good. And so when I see that and He sees so much better in me, I'm like, wow, Allah really has faith in me and He trusts in me and in my abilities and my patience, my strength to have that patience and find gratitude and find solutions and continue trying and not giving up and continuously turning to Him. And as His servant, that makes me happy. And I hope that that'll make you happy as well. So when Allah is withholding it, it doesn't mean that Allah doesn't want you to have it. It means that Allah is showing you that it's within reach for you. But maybe there's some things that you just need to redirect a little bit within yourself, in your method, in the direction. Maybe you're getting too caught up in something in the manifestation. Often, with marriage, and I'm so focused on marriage because I've literally just launched the Manifest Your Marriage course that launched yesterday, because today, as I'm recording this, is the 15th. So it launched yesterday. If you haven't checked it out, go check it out. But I'm so caught up in the whole subject now, but it's good because I know a lot of you are also very, very interested in manifesting your marriage. But one of the things that happens right there is that a lot of you tend to get caught up. And listen, I'm saying you, and I used to be one of you until I, got married and divorced again. And now I'm, vaccinated against marriage for a little while longer, at least. Maybe, in the future, I'll be right back there again. But the point is that I'm trying to say, after I have rattled on for a half an hour, is that when we're looking for marriage, quite often, what we tend to get so caught up in is the expectation of the person. And sometimes the expectation of the person means that Allah will show us it's close, but it's not there yet because we kind of locked ourselves into the expectation of it has to be with this specific person. However, if that specific person isn't meant for you, then Allah is not going to give you that person. You can force yourself the way in there, but it's going to turn into a very hard lesson for you to learn, most likely. And perhaps Allah is trying to protect you from that hurt, protect you from that heartbreak. And what a beautiful thing that is, that Allah is like, I don't want you to go through that. But if you're stubborn enough, you can maybe make that work. You can maybe force that, because again, Allah can facilitate and will facilitate for a lot of people, even wrong decisions. If we're not ready to take His signs when He's trying to redirect us, when He's trying to wake us up, and move on from it and let go of the expectation and broaden our own horizon, see a little bit from a different perspective and see the other things that Allah might be trying to introduce into our lives. Or even if that person is the one, wanting us to approach it from a different way, from a different perspective, from another method, maybe not now, but maybe in a few years. We don't know these things, but understand that when Allah is doing these things, He's giving us a moment to pause. And I think this is what's so magical about this. Allah is actually giving us the time when we're just like, oh, life goes so quick. I just got to make decisions. I got to hustle and move. And all of a sudden, 10 years later. And in reality, Allah is blessing us time and again in this dunya with moments to pause and think and reflect. But we don't see that oftentimes because we're so in a rush to focus on our own timeline that when Allah says, and take a breath, reflect, rearrange, and come back, we don't take it because we're not seeing it, because we're so locked on and focused on our own timeline and our own expectations of the things that we want. So next time you feel like Allah is not answering your dua, the manifestation keeps being pushed further and further out into the future, that he keeps sort of like teasing you with it, like almost like, here it is, and then takes it away in the last minute, then instead of looking at it being something that Allah is doing to you, think of it as something that Allah is doing for you. And change the perspective, change the narrative. And instead of looking at Allah and saying, why are you doing this to me? Look inwards and say, I wonder what Allah wants from me in this situation to do differently. What is Allah looking for? What is it that Allah wants me to understand within myself? Not from Allah, because Allah is perfect and His timing and His plan and everything that He does is perfect. So when that happens, take that pause, utilize that pause, be grateful for that pause and say, okay, something's going on here and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala sees something that I don't. Reflect. And then come back to it at a different time, inshallah. Okay, my darling, I'm going to leave you here. I'm hoping that there was something in this episode that could help you think differently about this situation if you've been kind of going dead on it and kind of getting stuck on it a bit, because let's be real, all of us do at times. I hope that it could give you some pause to reflect on your own situation. And I hope that it could give you a little bit more hope and motivation to continue working towards that manifestation of your dua, and understand that it is actually perhaps a really good thing that it's not happening right now. And usually, and what I would actually invite you to do, I'm going to give you a little lesson right now, not a lesson, a little bit of homework right now. What I want you to do as I'm finishing this episode is I actually want you to start thinking of times in the past where something was delayed, and then thinking about it now, that delay saved you from a situation, saved you money, saved you humiliation, saved you something where it was like, oh, I'm actually really glad that delay was there, because if I'd left the house a little bit earlier, I would have been stuck in traffic. I know there's such a little thing, but even those little things, I would have been on that flight where, something happened on the flight where, there was those people, for instance, who weren't on the flight where the part of the flight came off and the seats were ripped out and whatever. I don't know. I see that on TikTok. The point is, there can be small things and there can be big things. And sometimes the delaying of something is actually for our own good, but we won't see it until it has happened. And then with the, knowledge of hindsight and being able to see perfectly clear or somewhat clear in hindsight, we can look back and be like, that was actually really perfect timing, because if it had happened when I wanted it, this would have happened or that would have happened. And that could be little or small. So I'm going to leave you with that thought. Do a little bit of thinking about it in your own time. I promise you, there are going to be things in your life where you're like, wow, okay, no, you're absolutely right. That did happen. And that was perfect timing. And then come back to whatever it is that you're trying to manifest now and reassure yourself that this is also the right timing, even if you think that you're feeling a little pressed by it by now. Okay, my darling, until next time, I hope you're having an amazing day, but please don't forget to live in love.